This is linear equations with slope-intercept form, and this is video 7 for Algebra 1. Today we're going to be looking at slope-intercept form and what it is. The basic equation for slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. Okay, and we're going to be looking at what does all of those letters mean. What does m mean? What does b? Hopefully we know what x and y are right now. So first off, let's look at the different types of slope. Okay, we can have positive slope, which looks like this, and we always read slope going from left to right, so just like we read a book. So here we are going up. Okay, so that is positive. Positive is upwards. We have negative slope, which is going downwards. We have zero slope. I'm not going up or down, I'm just staying the same. And this one's kind of weird. This is undefined. Okay, and this means I don't know how much I'm going up because I'm going up infinitely. Okay, so m means slope, which is rise over run. Okay, so how much am I going to go up and how much am I going to go over? Okay, and our fancy little equation is y2 minus y1 and x2 minus x1. Okay, and we're going to have some examples where we go over exactly what that means. Okay, our b value is our y-intercept. And that's just simply where does our graph cross the x-axis. Okay, we can really see at this one that it crosses at 0. This one looks like it crosses about at -1. This one looks about at 1.5. Okay, and this one doesn't cross the y-axis or the x-axis at all. Okay, so that doesn't have a y-intercept, and that's okay. Our x-intercept, might as well talk about that. So that's just kind of extra. But as long as we're talking about y-intercept, we can talk about our x-intercept. It's where the graph crosses the y-axis. Okay, so y-intercept, x-axis, x-intercept, y-axis. It's kind of flip-flop from what we would think it would be. Okay, so let's just jump into examples, and I think this stuff will make a lot more sense after we do that. Okay, so our first example, I want to know what is the slope. Okay, well remember we said slope was here with the x. So whatever number is in front of the x, that's going to be our slope. If there's no number, remember that's a 1. So our slope is 3/4. Okay, that means I go up 3 and over 4. My y-intercept is -2. Alright, so when we graph this, I'm going to start at -2. My y-intercept is kind of like my starting point. And so from there, I'm going to look at my slope. So from this starting point, I'm going to go up 3 and over 4. Okay, and remember, you only need 2 points to make a line, so I could stop there, but I'm going to keep going just because. So I'm going to go up 3 and over 4. Okay, maybe I'm kind of running out of space, so if I want to go the opposite way, just go the opposite direction. Down 3 and over 4. All right, and then we can connect our lines. And that is our graph. Okay, so that's our graph. We've got a -2 y-intercept, and I go up 3 and over 4. Okay. Sometimes we won't have an equation. Maybe we might just have two points. Okay, and if we just have 2 points, that's where we're going to use that formula for slope. So remember, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, remember, that's our slope. Okay, now, you're saying, I don't know what y2 and y1 are, or x2 or x1. It doesn't really matter. You just need to name one of your points your first point and one your second point. So I'll call this x1 and y1, and I'll say this is x2 and y2. Now, if you do this different from me and you flip-flop those, just make sure you've got a 1 with a 1 and a 2 with a 2, okay? And then you should be able to figure this out. So we're going to start with our formula. Y2 would be -2 minus y1, which is 1, over x2 minus x1. Okay, so now I've got my equation. And if I look at this, let's see, -2 minus 1 would be -3. 4 minus 0 is 4. All right, so my slope is -3 fourths. So I would go down 3 over 4. All right. Another example. What if I have my slope and I have a point and I want to know the equation? Okay. Well, with this point, it's actually our y-intercept. So we can write our equation right now with our knowledge that we have. Okay. So we always start off with y equals. My slope is -1, so we just need to put a negative x. Remember, there's that invisible 1 right there. And this point is our y-intercept. I go over 0, up 8. So then I just need to say plus 8. Okay, so that's kind of an example where we don't really have to do a lot of work. There's a lot of words, but it's not as hard as we thought it was. Okay, this next section could be a little more difficult. This is going from a table to an equation. In Algebra 1, we do table, graphs, equation all the times. So we did, we graphed a little, and we found some equations. Now let's look at a table. So first we have to find how do our x's move, okay? So we want to look at the change. Lots of people say that our slope formula is not just x2 minus x1 and y2 minus y1 and x2 minus x1. They like to simplify it and just say delta y over delta x. So in math, that's not a triangle right now, it's a delta. And that just means the change. Change in y. And this is the change in x. Okay, and change is the same as subtraction. All right. So let's see, how do I get from my first x to my next x? Well, to get from here to there, I'm going to add 1. Okay, to get from -1 to 0, plus 1. From 0 to 1, plus 1. Okay. On my y's, how do I get from -5 to -3? Well, right there I'm going to add 2. From -3 to -1, I'm going to add 2. From -1 to 1, I'm going to, again, add 2. So those are all constant. So our slope, remember, it's y over x. So our slope is going to be +2 over +1, which is just 2. Okay, our y-intercept, that is when our x value is 0. So we're going to be looking at 0, -1, so our y-intercept is -1. Now we've got the information to write our equation, which is just y equals our slope and our y-intercept. Okay, our last example, we're going to do the same thing. Okay, look at your x's. How do I get from one x to the next? A lot of times, your x's will be +1. Maybe in word problems or more difficult problems, they'll be a little different, but most of the time, it'll be +1. All right, so this part, how do I get from 1 to -3, or -2 is I'm going to subtract 3. How do I get from -2 to -5? -3. And again, -5 to -8 is -3. So here our slope is, remember, change in y over change in x. So that would be equal to -3 over +1, which simplifies to just -3. Okay, now our y-intercept is when our x value is 0. Well, we don't have a 0 on our chart, so it's like, what do? Well, we just have to go backwards. Okay, go backwards to where there is a 0. So if I went backwards here, what would I do? Well, I would need to add 3 to 1. So my y value would be 4. Okay. So then, if I went along with the regular pattern, to get from 4 to 1 would be -3. That matches our pattern. Okay. Math is just a lot of patterns. So our y-intercept is 4, and our equation is y equals -3x plus 4. All right. So I know that's a lot to take in. This is a really hard part of Algebra 1, but if you can get this stuff correct and kind of learn it and memorize it, you're going to do really well in Algebra 1.